Why am I here? I ran into her at a supermarket I stopped by on a whim. Thinking back to the past, I found myself calling out to her before I knew it. My name is Ryan, 29 years old. I work in sales at a leading company. Jessica makes us feel relaxed, doesn't she? In recent years, Jessica, the receptionist at our office, has become the talk of the town. Famous for her beauty since she joined the company, she's known for her cheerful and bright personality, light makeup, and modest attire. She's popular not just within the company, but also with our clients. However, I never felt attracted to her, even though she's 5 years younger than me. We work at the same company, but the only interaction we have is when entering or leaving the office. Just a beautiful receptionist I exchange greetings with. I never thought our paths would cross beyond that. Hey, aren't you Ryan from the sales department? After work, I went to my favorite bar and there she was, Jessica, sitting at the counter, drinking alone. Good to see you. Surprised she remembered my name, I just greeted her and went to sit in the back. Ryan, if you're alone, how about joining me? However, I ended up drinking with her, called over by her friendly smile. I live with my family, but everyone is a lightweight when it comes to drinking. I got tired of drinking alone at home, so I've been exploring new places. This bar is really great. Jessica was drinking barley shot shoe. The owner, who came to greet me as a regular, mentioned that Jessica seems to be a good drinker. This place has a great owner. I recommend it if you're thinking of becoming a regular. As we both drank, the conversation flowed. I realized that Jessica didn't know she was referred to as the office Madonna or beautiful receptionist. When I casually mentioned the rumors about her, she just laughed them off, saying, "I'm not interested." Another round, Jessica said, passing her glass to the owner with enthusiasm. Watching her engage in lively conversation with the surprised owner, I began to see her in a new light. Eventually, we started running into each other at the bar after work, and soon we began drinking together more often. She laughs heartily and genuinely, without any pretense. I found myself increasingly drawn to Jessica, who deeply cherishes her family. We started going out on our days official. I couldn't ignore my feelings for her anymore. I had genuinely fallen for Jessica. I'm not very experienced in love. So, with a do-or-die attitude, I confessed my feelings on Christmas. I thought she would reject me, seeing me as just a drinking buddy. But her response was unexpected. "I like you too, Ryan." Jessica, blushing and looking down, responded in a soft voice. I was so happy, I couldn't help but shout for joy, which was unlike me. Our relationship progressed smoothly, and the happy days flew by. A year later, on Christmas, I proposed. Of course, Jessica said yes, and we became husband and wife. My colleagues envied me for marrying the office favorite. I was proud of my wonderful wife, but living together gradually led to struggles over differing values. "Sorry, I couldn't cook well today. I'll go buy some lunchboxes. Just wait a bit." Jessica, who usually got home before me, was eager to cook. But every other day, she'd fail and end up rushing out to buy lunchboxes. "Shall I cook dinner? If you push yourself too hard from the start, you might collapse." It's okay. I want to become a good wife by increasing the household chores I can handle quickly. Living together, I realized that Jessica was really bad at housework. During our dating period, I brought up the idea of living together several times, but Jessica said, "I want to live with my family until we get married." I respected her wish and decided we would live together after marriage, looking forward to it as a post-wedding joy. So, I hadn't realized her struggle with housework until now. The era where women do all the housework is over, and since we both work, I suggested sharing the chores right after moving in. Jessica honestly admitted, "I'm sorry, it's embarrassing." But I've never done housework before. I'm a complete beginner, so I might cause some trouble. She seemed to feel guilty about having no experience in housework, but I thought there was no need to feel so complex about it, as everyone starts as a beginner. Probably in Jessica's family home, her mother-in-law did all the housework. That's what I felt when I visited a few times. Jessica and her sister were pampered to the extreme. Though they were raised with care, it likely resulted in 25 years detached from household chores. Don't worry, we can learn together. To that, Jessica smiled softly and said, I was ready to be disliked for saying this, so I'm really relieved. From then on, Jessica put in a lot of effort. Eager to do the housework herself, she researched and experimented with tips from the internet. At first, I found her efforts endearing and watched over her, but she turned out to be surprisingly unskilled. I did the shopping on my way home. When I got home, she would happily show me what she bought, but I had to tell her, thanks, Jessica. However, we already have onions and carrots from yesterday, so you didn't need to buy them today. Really? Oops, sorry. She seemed to have no habit of checking the fridge, often buying the same ingredients multiple times. She also seemed unaware of prices until at the checkout, often buying expensive seasonings and household items. Ryan, what should I do? I did the laundry but forgot the fabric softener. It took her a long time to get used to laundry. Even though I suggested that we should do laundry regularly to avoid piling it up, Jessica often forgot to do it. As a result, we ended up with a large amount of laundry to deal with, and both hanging and collecting it became a struggle every time. I was used to household chores since my university days and was quite good at them. While I supported Jessica's efforts, the chores took so much time that I ended up doing more myself. Gradually, Jessica distanced herself from housework. It's faster and more accurate when Ryan does it. Maybe this is for the best. Jessica must have felt frustrated, unable to perform the chores to her satisfaction. Her once bright and hearty laughter seemed like a distant memory, replaced by a tired expression. I used to think it was okay not to force myself to do things I'm not good at, and that it's fine to try hard again when I felt like it. However, one day, I started to accumulate dissatisfaction. However, things started to change after our son, Max, was born. Welcome home. Thanks, I'll make dinner right away. Life became even busier with childcare. Our child's every cry was adorable to me. I felt I could do anything for him. I truly felt that way from the bottom of my heart. Jessica had severe morning sickness during pregnancy, making it difficult to work, so she took an early maternity leave. I took over the night care of Max, wanting her to rest. During the day, our parents helped, but it was still a struggle with first-time parenting. After childbirth, her body was already worn out and her energy depleted. That's why I believe mutual support between spouses is essential. After the challenging first 3 months, my exhaustion reached its peak. Work got busier, and I came home late every night after long hours and overtime. I had no time to rest, immediately starting household chores upon returning. Jessica took care of Max during the day. I kept telling myself that, trying to manage everything alone. That was my mistake. I was unknowingly strangling myself with my own efforts. Welcome back, Ryan. Today, Max. Sorry, I need to rush and get the laundry in. Oh, sorry, I'll take care of it. Jessica, unchanged since our marriage, always greeted me happily upon my return. But as soon as I entered the room, the messy scene stressed me out. Laundry hung outside on the balcony, and unwashed dishes in the sink. Lately, I think I've been looking at everything with a cold eye. I stopped Jessica, who hurried to get the laundry, and silently started folding it myself. Seeing the awkwardness in Jessica, she went to attend to our crying son, Max. On one of those days, I couldn't hold back my frustration anymore. "Jessica, can't you do something when Max is asleep? I take care of him at night, so you can sleep, right?" I vented my frustration, sighing at the perpetually messy room. Jessica listened with an apologetic look. Irritated even by that, I spoke coldly. "Yay, I know, I'm really sorry." Her sad face pained my heart, but her apology somehow made me speak more harshly. "Max has started weaning, but the rice porridge you make, Jessica, the grains are too big, I'm worried he might choke. And you're giving him foods and methods that are too early for his age. Please study before making them." Max was now 5 months old, and we had started his weaning. Jessica, not wanting to rely on store-bought food, began cooking. I was initially pleased with this change, but her lack of study and cooking skills showed, making me oversensitive about anything Max ate. "I'm sorry, I can't even make porridge right. You're amazing, Ryan, doing both work and house chores. Thank you, even though you're tired." Why does she thank me when I'm criticizing her? Why does she respond with kind words when I'm unloading my frustrations on her? I hated myself for becoming such a negative person. Time passed, and Max grew to be 4 years old. That year, Jessica and I divorced. It started with something trivial. During my business trip, Jessica was to take care of Max and the house. She was enthusiastic about doing house chores again, but when I returned, I knew everything from seeing my mother-in-law, who greeted me. "Ryan, you're back early. Welcome home." Jessica, clearly flustered. Seeing my surprised face, she honestly told me she had asked her mother for help. But I blamed her. "Why did you ask for help? Now, I think, what's wrong with asking your own parents for help?" I had lost my patience due to various stresses and took it out on Jessica. How low could I be? "Jessica, didn't you change your full-time receptionist job to part-time to focus on housework? So why am I still doing all the housework?" My mother-in-law had left immediately after I got home, so she was no longer there. With Max at daycare, it was just Jessica and me, a tense atmosphere hanging between us. Jessica didn't argue back as I showered her with harsh words. "I want to relax a bit when I get home from work, but I can't. I have to do house chores right away." Jessica just nodded, her face down. After 5 years of accumulated stress, I finally brought up divorce. Jessica looked sad and resigned, quietly agreeing to the divorce. I still had feelings for her. Her kindness, brightness, and sincerity. My feelings hadn't changed since we met. I didn't want to divorce, really. But I felt that staying together would break something beyond repair. The more emotional I got, the more hurt Jessica became. I had focused too much on her inability to do housework. I had seen her trying hard up close. I realized she felt sorry for not being able to do certain things. It wasn't Jessica's fault. I knew this better than anyone, yet somehow we had drifted apart. "Please take care of Max." I agreed to take Max, with the condition that Jessica could see him whenever she wanted. Jessica had nowhere else to go, so she returned to her family home, and I, coincidentally, got a transfer to a branch office and decided to move. I worried about changing Max's environment at such a time, but since the transfer was within the same state, I decided to take him with me. "Ryan, how has Jessica been since she quit her job?" A few years after our divorce, I returned to my original workplace. I noticed Jessica's absence at the reception but didn't know she had quit. Apparently, it had been mentioned in the company newsletter, but I hadn't had time to read it amidst my busy days. I didn't know she quit. "Is everything okay?" Reacting to a colleague's intriguing comment, I learned that Jessica had resigned suddenly after becoming emaciated due to the mental shock of her mother's death. She probably didn't tell me about her mother's passing or her resignation to avoid worrying me. I remembered her close-knit family. They were genuinely close, always filled with smiles. Her mother-in-law was always at the center of it all. She had always treated me very well, and now I was worried about how Jessica was coping after losing her. I tried calling her, but the call never connected. We had only communicated via email about Max's visitation. Thinking she might check her email when she had time, I sent a longer than usual message, mentioning I heard about her resignation and asking if she was okay. Her reply came quicker than expected, just one word, yes. Worried, but remembering we were now strangers, I didn't continue the conversation. Then, on a Sunday, 1 week before Christmas, I took Max shopping for Christmas. Every year, we decorated and prepared lavish meals, just like when we were a family of 3. This year, I had forgotten to reserve a cake, so we were out looking for a bakery still accepting orders. Max, this bakery still accepts orders. Which Christmas cake would you like? Finding a miraculously available bakery, I asked him, but his unexpected reply took me by surprise. I want the cake I made with Mom and Dad together. It was from the Christmas when Max was 3. That year, having forgotten to reserve a cake, we decided to buy sponge, cream, fruit, and candies from the supermarket and decorate it ourselves. Though inferior in taste and appearance to store-bought cakes, the joyously decorated cake became a delicious and memorable experience. All right, let's make a cake this year. Really? Yay. Max jumped with joy at my words. In my memory, Jessica happily decorated the cake. It felt a bit lonely to make it without her this year. Mom likes this cake. Max pointed at a fruit tart in the display, Jessica's favorite. Shall we buy it and take it home? Now, compared to those times, my work has settled down, and I have more peace of mind. I regret everything: the divorce, the harsh words I said, my selfish behavior, and the cold attitude I had adopted. It's too late for anything now. Then came Christmas. I left work early to find strawberries for the cake. Typical of the Christmas season, many places were sold out. Finally, at the 4th store with strawberries, I felt relieved, and then my heart skipped a beat when I saw a woman arranging items in the deli section. Jessica, the woman in the mask and apron, was undoubtedly Jessica, and I instinctively rushed over to speak to her. Jessica, what are you doing here? Ryan. Jessica looked at me, surprised. Max was now in elementary school, and Jessica and I had no reason to meet anymore. Seeing Jessica for the first time in a while, now thin and worn out, pained my heart. I wish I had paid more attention to her earlier. Jessica, what time do you finish work? Before I knew it, I was asking about her shifts in time, and after a few minutes of waiting outside the supermarket, she came out. You really waited for me. Jessica was even more surprised that I had waited. Of course, I'm going to make a Christmas cake with Max, and we have other preparations too. If you're okay with it, why don't you join us? I knew Max would be thrilled to see Jessica. He always talked about her happily after their visits. Above all, I wanted to invite her. I was worried about her, and I thought there must be a reason we met again on this Christmas, a day with special significance for us. Is it okay if I join? Jessica asked tentatively, but with a hint of happiness, and I nodded back with a smile. On the way home, bracing for an awkward silence, I asked her about her life after the divorce and following her mother's passing. After the divorce, I stayed with my parents for a bit. Jessica shared that she had initially returned to her parents' house after the divorce but then decided to live alone, hoping for a day when she could reunite with me and Max and gain life skills. But then her mother became ill and eventually passed away. Unable to rely on her married sister for help with her father, Jessica returned home to care for him and switched to her current job for its flexibility and proximity. She also talked about the challenges of balancing work and household responsibilities. I realized that it was no wonder you were upset back then. I'm sorry for putting you through so much. I should have found a better way to express myself, and I was too stubborn about doing everything myself. I'm sorry." Jessica never blamed me. I thought about how endlessly kind and strong she was. We exchanged apologies and felt a bit awkward, but we soon arrived home. "Mom, you're here too." Max, who had just returned from school, was delighted to see Jessica and eagerly led her inside. I followed them into the kitchen, placing the strawberries I had bought on the counter. Jessica, unsure where to go, was invited by Max to join in the kitchen. As we started making the cake, it was like the old times of fun and lively atmosphere. Jessica, initially hesitant, joined Max in playfully decorating the cake in a whimsical way, and Max, inheriting Jessica's hearty laugh, enjoyed every moment. Seeing this familiar family scene, I felt a warmth in my heart. Jessica, too, seemed moved, her eyes moist as she bit her lip, laughing as she and Max bit the finishing touches on the cake. The completed cake was a creative masterpiece. The party was a blast, and the cake, despite its outrageous appearance, tasted like the best in the world. Max went to bed happy and content. As snow began to fall outside, and with Jessica saying her home was only 2 stations away, I almost insisted that she stay the night, and she agreed. We opened a bottle of champagne I had bought on sale and had a drink together for the first time in a long while. Jessica must have been going through a lot. Despite being 5 years younger than me, her skin and hair looked worn out. "Hey, Jessica, can't we start over? I know it's selfish, but I've been regretting. I hurt you, but my feelings for you haven't changed from the start." I abruptly brought up the idea of remarriage. Jessica, looking incredulous, responded in a quiet voice, "But I might just become a burden on you again." Even so, I expressed that now we could support each other better, apologized for not being mature enough back then, for not being supportive despite knowing her efforts, and asked her to remarry me. "Really? Of course, let's work on it together." Jessica nodded, tears in her eyes, at my words. And so, we decided to remarry. Half a year later, after much effort, Jessica's skill in housework had improved significantly. I also began to enjoy doing household chores with her, and now Jessica, eager to try complex recipes, even started attending cooking classes. Max was delighted that the family was back together, becoming brighter than before. I also realized that I lacked DIY skills, or rather, I was not good at making things. I noticed this during Max's summer vacation project, and surprisingly, Jessica was quite skilled in such areas. Now, we can proudly say we are a good couple who support each other in our weaknesses.
All right, everyone's presentations are done. Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward. "Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something." Nick interrupted me and began to speak. "There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. Meetings should be for employees only." Absolutely right. His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. "I'm leaving." After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking, there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly. The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale. "Nick, is something wrong?" Mike looked at the screen with him. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam. My mother passed away when I was in the 9th grade, and I was raised by my father. Well, you could hardly call it being raised. After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing. Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school. Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my second year of high school and dropped out. I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything. The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke. Take care. That was our last conversation. Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment. Yet, my father never visited me even once. I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education. Listen up. Our work can change the future of our employees. Don't drag us down. On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly. There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle. At its peak, we had 5 locations within the state. But that was long ago. Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked, we could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales, this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. I understood why he had to be strict. I will do my best. Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. Did you not hear what I said? I'm sorry. I thought I was listening carefully. Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him. Someone was watching me with a smirk. In this department, there are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go. You are the latter. It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie, making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened. Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results. As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, I'm thirsty. Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey. I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day. Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today? Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today. I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly. They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children, with zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job, having joined the company wanting to do customer service. I don't care what they say, I plan to quit anytime, he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated, making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look. To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day. Originally, Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. So, you all get a chance. As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. Make sure not to embarrass Nick. If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them. It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America. Nick began the presentations. Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them. The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn. "All right, everyone's presentations are done." "Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something." Nick interrupted me. "There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer." He was likely talking about me. I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking. The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. "Still here?" Normally, you'd leave in that situation. Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life. I felt pathetic about my current self. "I'm leaving." I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home. The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale. "Nick, what's wrong?" Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. Probably Sam. Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires. Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen. They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday. Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips. The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally. President of the company, Mr. Mason himself, had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles. Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction. Do you know how much revenue we get from that company? We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs, gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan. If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized. Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason. What? You're coming with me, right? I have urgent work to do. I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you. Please. Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, yes. That's Nick for you. Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind. Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, I'm very sorry. Everyone watched to see what was happening. After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason. He was demanding, get his boss here immediately. It was no wonder Sam was exhausted, dealing with such a call right after returning from training. What is that idiot doing? Alright, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next. Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation. If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you. I immediately followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was, as the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office. Angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor. I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize. Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room. What kind of training are you giving your subordinates? Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed. I should have realized sooner. No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using their in. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1: if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons, leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread, hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? I'm very sorry. Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology. He said, "I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong." Mike! What have you done? Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason. I didn't do anything wrong. You're still saying that? Look at him. Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand. I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract? Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor. Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go. Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker, and to take good care of him. There's no way he was pushed aside. Don't make things worse here. He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he? I don't remember that part. I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers. Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone. It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room, one had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault. This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf. He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. But it seemed his flaws were starting to show. Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation. The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared. Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment? Filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance. Specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too. It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized. As for the other requests, Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load. I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job. I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor. In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you've failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office. I was amazed he still hadn't apologized. You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company. I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident. Especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here. When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it. Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted. Do you two know each other? Adam's service is excellent. I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned, I'm moving to the sales department soon. If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse. Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it. On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer. It's still working hours. Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer. Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived. I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name. They look good. What are you talking about? These are plastic bottles. I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea. But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company. It was priced like bottling tea. Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each? The tea inside is specially blended for us. The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one? As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email. I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed. He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important. You should worry about yourself. This could turn into a police matter. Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble. Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation. Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment. Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary. Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay? I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. Yes, I'm inviting my father. That's great. I might invite my parents too. I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hoped to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did.